Welcome to Success Talk. This is Dr. Herbert Harris giving you another edition of Success Talk. We interview people each week who have accomplished important, incredible things, but who have also overcome obstacles and challenges and made their breakthroughs. Today we have a young man who his mission is absolutely critical. I mean, financial literacy right now is probably one of the most undertaught skills there is. And our guest today, Chris Corinthian, is the man with the book helping bring us to a state of financial literacy. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. I appreciate you having me, sir.
Well, when we were talking earlier, this idea of financial literacy is powerful. I mean, many people, well, they don't have checkbooks anymore, but many people have no idea how to even keep track of their finances, a budget or anything. They just, I guess, spend till they run out of money.
Absolutely. And that's the rule of thumb. And sometimes that's the only thing they're taught. If anything, they might say, well, put something away for a rainy day. But other than that, make sure you have something to pay for your food and keep a roof over your head. And that's about it.
Wow. Well, Chris, tell us a little about your background because that's such a unique area. How did you start? Where are you from? What were your early years like?
Right. So professionally, I've been in higher ed most of my career. And most of that time was spent in financial aid. So I would see students from all different socioeconomic backgrounds and different backgrounds, and they would come from from high class, middle class, and then I'd even work with some students who are homeless, right? And they were all coming for the same mission to get a college degree to improve their life. And so I would try to help these students navigate their finances in order to pay for college expenses. And I worked in financial aid for, I guess, going on 18 years. Right. And so I worked with thousands of students. You start to see common themes and common threads between a lot of them. And for those that were successful when it came to finances, and then those who were not as successful. And so once you start picking up on these certain themes and habits that people had, you saw what worked and what didn't work. And so after financial aid, I transitioned into financial literacy and personal finance more specifically in the higher ed realm. And then I switched over into mentoring. So I kind of combined all of those areas all into one. And then I kind of made it into my own outside the higher ed space and started going on a mission to help as many people as I could.
So, coming from that financial aid background, I guess you could see firsthand the impact of the lack of financial literacy.
Absolutely, because there were some students that didn't even know what a budget was. Like you said, we're talking about if people can create a budget for themselves, they're like, what's a budget? Right. And then even you try to explain it in its most basic form, it's like, okay, I like how Tiffany Aliche, she goes by the budgetnista. Tiffany Aliche defines a budget as a written plan of what you're going to do with your money. Right. And so when I tell people that now, they're like, oh, okay, well, if I can have a plan for my money, then you're more in control of your finances versus your finances having control over you. Right. And then so, yeah, when you think about it like that, it's like, okay, well, yeah, if I have a plan for my money, then I have more control over the destiny of that money. So that's usually where we start with. And then when we start there, then a light bulb tends to go off when I say that. And they're like, you know what? I never really thought about having a plan for my money. It's just, I was just taught that make sure I pay all my bills. And that was the only personal finance education.
Wow. That, and when you really think about it, they don't get it in elementary school. They don't get it in middle school. They don't get it in high school. So probably the first time they even hear the word finances and financial literacy is when they're looking to go to college.
If that. Because even now, you're starting to hear it a little more, not in the higher ed realm, but before that, you really even didn't hear it then. And that's why some students didn't even see a problem with maxing out or taking out the most student loans that they needed over what they actually needed. They just take out the max amount of student loans, and they would get overage checks, or what they call student refund checks. And they would take this money, borrowed money, and they would go to trips to Cancun, or they would travel, or they would buy clothes at the mall as soon as they get these checks. And then now Now the student loan deficit is $1.7 trillion in student loan debt in the US. And the reason is because most of the students are taking out more than they need and they don't have any type of plan to pay it back.
Yeah.
And there are a number of reasons why that is, but that's one of the main reasons. They just don't, they see credit cards and loans as free money that they have no responsibility or ties to because they didn't necessarily work hard for this money or work a job for this money. It's not really their money, so they don't have any type of indicators or consciousness to let them know that this isn't a good or a good practice, I should say,
Yeah. Well, many times, and now what I've seen is we had a lady in our church, and her brother's daughter called her and said something like, I'm in school. They're getting ready to put me out if I don't get my financial aid, set up, and I got a student loan, and I need somebody to sign for me. And the lady said, she was like, well, what do you mean? She said, and she didn't even really put it like that. She said that they called her from the student loan place, and she verified, yes, I'm supporting, I'm her, some kind of word that said she had approved it.
Right.
And then the lady was shocked when on her credit thing shows up a student loan for like $12,000.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Because the parents, sometimes students, they get a maximum amount of student loans that they're eligible for from the Department of Education. So, for example, if a student comes in as a freshman, right now they're eligible for $3,500, $3,500 in subsidized loan, meaning that the Department of Education will pay for the interest or they'll subsidize the interest while they're in school. And then they have the unsubsidized loan, which accrues interest. And a dependent student is only eligible for $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's $5,500 a year. And most of the time, the bill is going to be much higher for that for the whole academic year. So what they do is there's this thing called the Parent Plus loan. And so the Parent Plus loan, you could take out up to the cost of attendance most times. And the parent is taking out a loan for the student. And they don't realize that. They're just thinking that, oh, yeah, well, I'll sign whatever you need me to sign just so you can go into school. And then down the line, they realize, wow, I took out a $40,000 loan for this student while they were in school, and I didn't even know it.
And that's exactly what happened. And the lady just talked about it because when the pandemic hit, they delayed, they said she didn't have to start paying because I think she graduated at the like in 2020. The pandemic was going, so I guess they whatever that virtual graduation, but the 12,000 has grown to almost 18,000 because the interest kept accruing.
That's right. They'll tell you, they said it will defer it while the student is still in school. So whichever comes first, either 60 days after graduation or 60 days after the last day of attendance. And they could defer that payment. So if they took out 12,000 a freshman year, it's going to continue to accrue interest until it's being paid back. And that's why it's $18,000 now. And you have no idea that all of this is happening in the background. You might see a letter or two, but you might not open it because I don't know what this is. It's probably selling me something. And then not knowing that, oh, now you have a $20,000 bill from something that was $8,000 4 years ago.
Yeah, and then the lady she said something about Sally Mae. And, because I was talking, she said, when I saw Sally Mae, I'm thinking Fannie Mae. So I'm thinking that came up when the whole student loan forgiveness came. And it turns out that the private ones don't qualify this particular one to be forgiven.
Right. And then many people thought, okay, well, as long as I got a student loan, it's going to be forgiven, but that's not necessarily the case. There were so many people that didn't get some of their student loans forgiven because they were not federal funds. They were private loans through private institutions, and they have a different process.
Yeah. And, when I saw the name Fannie Mae, I'm not the dumbest doll in the church. I assumed it was a federal, like federally subsidized loan. But when she brought me the papers and down there in this 5-point print, it says this is not federally guaranteed, this is a private institution. So that I think literally it's almost a type of economic slavery because it puts most students into a position where they have this thing hanging over their heads forever.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and for what I hear, it may not even be discharged at death.
Right, right, exactly. And then you're like, okay, well, what are we doing here, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And so when this, even going back to Sally Mae, so Sally Mae, it initially was a government initiative, and then it was, Student Loan Marketing Association, and it was a type of initiative, association or agency, but I think it was association, Student Loan Marketing Association, SLMA. Sally Mae, and then it turned into this own entity. Yeah, and I was like, wow, this thing goes deep on so many levels. And then what happened is, so then Sally Mae started buying back the loan from the government, and then it became a private institution versus a government-backed institution. And then they started buying back on a cheaper rate these loans, and then now they were able to get, show up on the credit and all these other things that come after the money. So it goes on so many different levels, and I was like, wow, when I learned all this stuff.
well, as I said, I think I consider myself pretty astute. I've had a couple of kids go through college. When my daughter was in college, I think her entire career, she took maybe $7,000 in student loans. And it was funny, the school really pushed her, said, well, they were getting ready to change something and, you should get the money, almost implying that it was found money, But
Yeah.
but she was pretty sharp, she took, I think, $7,500 and so she was able to handle that. But this whole mission is so incredible because in the Black community, this is many, and I think that in this situation, I think the girls' parents knew because the question was like, why didn't they sign for it? And
Mm-hmm.
as you're talking now, they may have already been maxed out because I think this was her senior year.
Yep.
So they may have already been maxed out based on their income level.
Correct. Yeah, and based on how much she took out, because then once she reaches that 23,500, then she can't take out any more. And so once a dependent student gets to their max, then it's actually 31,000. Excuse me. But once they get to that max, then the parent has to sign off on a Parent Plus loan. Now, if a parent applies for a Parent Plus loan, which is credit based, then credit/income based. But if credit doesn't get approved for the Parent Plus loan, then it changes the amount that the student can get, and now they can go up to 57,500. They can get the same amount as an independent student would get. And so that's how it keeps going down deeper and deeper into this deficit and into this debt hole. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Chris, you are the first person that I have ever heard give an explanation of how this thing works.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it goes on down so many levels. And so that's why my mission is to eliminate the need for student loan debt altogether. I show students how to go to school debt-free and graduate debt-free with money in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I show them how to do that even if they've already taken out a student loan. I show them how they can pay off their student loan while they're still in college and then graduate college debt-free with money in the bank. But most of the times, and the reason why students can't pay these loans back is because you'll have a large percentage of students who go into the work field, degree in hand, but they're going into a field that they didn't get the degree in. They settle for jobs because they have to pay the bills now.
Yeah.
They're not in their parents' house anymore. They're on their own. And they're like, I have to do whatever it takes, even if I have to get a job from Walmart or I have to valet or I have to do Uber or whatever it takes. I need to do something to keep a roof over my head and keep the lights on.
And then Scooby-Doo and whatever.
Scooby-Doo, whatever. It don't matter. We're gonna have to do whatever we have to do in order to keep the, and then down the line, if they're lucky enough, then they end up getting something in their field. And so that's another reason why I stress the importance of internships, even if they're not getting paid while they're in school, because they're getting that professional experience. Most jobs are not going to ask for their transcript when they're applying for a job. They're going to say, what can you contribute to our organization? How can you make our organization better? And then when you say, not what I can do, let me tell you what I've done. This
Uh-huh.
is what I did in my internship for this
Uh-huh.
company. Matter
Yes.
of fact, I interned at this company and I set up these 3 initiatives while I was here.
Yes.
Now your processes are much better. And then when you can go through explaining what you did as a free intern, they're like, oh, we need to hire you on the spot because
Gotcha.
we already know
Yes.
who you are. We already know your capabilities. We know your talents and skill sets, and you have relationships with the people here. And so that's the easiest way to get inside of an organization, and get a good job, get a high paying job for if you're going that route.
Well, what you're really saying is education requires a plan.
Education requires a plan. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You
Yes,
know,
educate, and
that goes into that universal law of vision right there.
that's it. That's it. Because, like I said, I don't know. Many parents. I can't think of a single parent that I'm aware of who sat down and really strategized. It seemed a lot, in counseling people, as part of our church at times.
Mhm.
Uh, it seems that the whole initiative is student driven. The parents will fill out whatever that initial FAFSA, whatever that form is, and that's kind of it. And then from that point on, the student seems to be making the decisions. And the only time they really come back to the parents is when they hit a roadblock.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
And
exactly.
and so they're making decisions that they don't really have the understanding to make intelligently. And then you listen to the other students, and I've heard it. Get that money, man. Get that money. As a matter of fact, years ago, I was working with a North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company. A group of credit card packages had come together, and we wanted to create a universal student card for the for the students that could be used as an ID card, and it would be a debit card also.
Mhm.
And the schools, it was predominantly HBCUs, historically black colleges. But one of the things that we found was that so many of the students, when they got those loans and that financial aid, had this overage, and they worked to get that overage. And one of the main reasons they were interested in doing it on a debit card was that the students acted so, let's just say, they demanded their money immediately. They acted like it
Mhm.
was a paycheck.
Right. Yep. And they'll
Yeah,
be front and center in the lines,
yeah,
pitchforks in hands.
yeah.
Where's my money? And you're
Where's my
like, wait a
money?
minute, it doesn't
Yeah.
work like that. First of all, have you gone to class yet?
Oh, do I have to go to class?
I
They
didn't think
didn't
that was
tell
a
me that.
requirement. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
all of that, I've seen and heard it all. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, I'd like to go back. I mean, what was your early years? How did you get this understanding? I mean, this is, were your parents like financially astute? Were they into that money management? Or?
No, my dad told me, he said, listen, make sure work hard for your money, put something away for a rainy day. And then down the line, he's saying you probably want to invest in something.
Mhm.
But that was my total financial literacy of personal finance education. Just
Mm.
just those 10 seconds right there, that was my whole education on personal finance, right?
Mhm.
And so that was what I went with. So when I got to college, and then you have these marketplaces set up where people are trying to give you credit cards because you're 18 now, and they're like, hey, you're 18. Here goes a $300 credit card. Make sure you at least make the minimum payments, be on your way. And then that was my total education on credit cards and credit, right?
Mhm.
And then when I got the student loans, I came in on scholarship, but then, the first semester went to one too many parties and my GPA dropped, right?
Mhm.
And then I ended up graduating with honors because after that semester, my parents were just like, look, you can't come back home. You need to
Uh-huh.
take that seriously and know
Uh-huh.
that this is it, right? And so I ended up graduating with honors, but then down the line, I just started taking out more loans than I needed. And I was just like those students I was talking about in the beginning. They'll just take that money and then just spend it on personal stuff. And then that accumulation of student loan debt just goes higher and higher. And so, and it's so easy because the money is just accessed like that. I don't have to get a credit check. I don't have to, get any type of personal guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I don't pay it, they're not going to come after my car. Now
Mm-hmm.
they will garnish your wages if you don't pay them after a
Yeah.
while. But most of
Yeah.
the time, people don't think about that.
Right.
They sign on the dotted line. They sign the master promissory note, which says all of these things could happen. But when it's just a click of a button and putting your initials, out of sight, out of mind. They're not thinking about it anymore. And
Gotcha.
then it doesn't hurt them until the long run, where now they're taking it out of their check or they're paying every month and they don't even have enough to live the lifestyle they could live had they not graduated with all of this debt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so going back to the beginning, those are my lessons. And then once I got through in the financial aid arena and I started getting in higher ed, then I started learning a little bit more. So going back before I started working in the university, that I'm currently at, I was working for a big billion-dollar company. And the day after my son was born, I was getting paid double my salary from where I was before.
Mm-hmm.
And the day after my son was born, they said, "Congratulations, Chris, but we got to let you go."
Wow.
Oh, sorry.
Uh-huh.
Let me go. I was devastated. My wife wasn't working at the time because she was on maternity leave. And then 2 months after that, I lost everything in an apartment fire and I didn't pay any renter's insurance. It was $12 a month. I was like, I'm responsible. But the girl across the hall upstairs left the stove on and 24 families were displaced. So I literally didn't have any job,
Uh-huh.
lost everything, didn't have any savings because all the money we were getting every single week, we were spending on baby clothes and baby stuff and we were taking trips and things like that. So we didn't have any savings, didn't have any money. And then Red Cross had to give us a $250 gift card so we can get clothes from Walmart. And everything we had in our possession was out of this blue tub. A few
Wow.
pairs of clothes, a blue tub. So we were living a high life and getting everything we wanted, getting paid weekly, double the salary, still living in the same spot we were before. So we had much more money at the end of the month, and it was just like, okay, we're living the life now. And I was in my 20s at the time, and it was just things changed just like that.
Just like
Just
that.
like that. And then that was during the recession. So it was 2 years. Out of those 2 years, I was unemployed for 11 months. And so I had to create companies and businesses to help me stay afloat during that time. But it was a rough time, but it really taught me the importance of budgeting, saving, having an emergency fund, right? And that's one of the things I tell students now. I say, have a budget for right now, but also have a budget for when you graduate. Because most of the time students graduate and then they're hit with this reality shock because they're like, whoa, where'd all these bills come from?
Yeah.
Everything was covered every semester. All their living expenses, their meals, everything was covered. And they just had to pay at the beginning of the semester. And if they did their due diligence and did what they were supposed to do, they got off scholarships or some type of grant and financial aid. And then they go out to the real world and everything is due every week or once a month most of the time. Every 30 days, you're going to have to pay this bill. So I tell the students to visualize, right? Here goes that universal law of vision, right? Visualize what they want their lifestyle to look like. And I tell them to dream big. If you had all the money, all the resources, everything in the world that you wanted at your fingertips, what would you desire, right? And so we talk about the universal law of change, right? And we talk about faith and we talk about choice and desire, right? Or dreams. And then we think about, okay, well, what is it that I really want in life? And a lot of times, sometimes they'll go into tears or then it's like a light bulb goes off because they're like, nobody ever asked me to dream before.
Right.
Because sometimes they're living from day to day or hour to hour or minute by minute, just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And they're either stuck in the present or even stuck in the past, though they can't even deal with the present because of the way that their past was set up. So the future is not even a thing that they think about. So now that they're thinking about the future, now I tell them, okay, if you had all those resources, all the money, what type of house would you have? You have all the money in the world. What type of house would you want?
Yeah.
Okay. How many trips a year would you take, right?
Yeah.
What kind of car, how many cars would you have? What kind of cars would you drive? What kind of clothes would you have? Would you have, let's say that you have a family. Would you have a tutor that came by? Do you want to work out? Do you have a personal trainer? Do you have, and then I just have them map out all of these things. And I say, okay, if this is how much it is, how much is the salary for somebody that comes and cleans up the house once a week or twice a week, right? What's their salary? If you want to take a trip, how many trips you take and how much is that a year? You get the total amount for the year or how much a car note is or whatever. You divide it by 12. Now you have your monthly budget for your month, okay? And then based on that, Now you know how much it's going to cost. Then you could divide it up by days. Okay, divide
Uh-huh.
that total monthly amount by days.
Yeah.
This is how much you need to be earning every single day,
Yeah.
either through a job or either through some type of entrepreneurship venture or either some type of passive income stream. Or
Yeah.
let's say, and then so in the book, I teach them how. The last chapter of the book, I teach them 15 passive income streams as college students. So it
Uh-huh.
gets them in the mindset of how they can create something one time, right? And in the
Yeah.
book, you talk about how thoughts become things, right? Like
Yeah.
the universal law of thought, right? And
Uh-huh.
how, thoughts can truly become things, right? And
Yes.
then
Yes.
it all comes down to mindset. And then most of the times people think that's hocus pocus, and I don't know what you're talking about. Everything I've had to be tangible things, and that's all I've dealt with. But
Yep.
that thing had to start with thought. And
Yes.
so when I teach them that and then I show them examples to make it believable for them. And I say, look, this person started with this idea, and
Mhm.
look what happened, right? I was just sharing something with a student today, and there was this nurse, Stephanie Beggs, I forgot her last name, but she took her notes during the pandemic, and she was trying to study for certain certificates or certain license to
Uh-huh.
become a nurse. And she sold those notes online and generated $2 million because people were like, I'll buy those notes. I love how you map those out and you put it, and she made a digital product out of it. And then those thoughts became tangible things, which people then bought.
Now,
And so when you go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, when you were saying that, that's how I paid for, in college. That was when I made my money. We call them ponies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I had gone to college, I was very young. I was only 16 when I went to college
Okay.
and came up into an Ivy League school from the South. And I was like overmatched, my teachers had prepared me, the core me, how to approach it. I was actually taught how to study, but to be in an arena where, coming from the South, I was the top dog in a small pond. Coming to the North, I wasn't even in the pond.
Right. Yeah. You was down the road somewhere saying pond this way.
Yeah. And so I ended up, like you say, that first semester when the only thing I passed was French. And and with that scholarship thing, you got that one more semester, and then you're out of there.
And that's it. That's
And
it.
That's it. And I had to bear down, and I had developed a method to study and take notes and whatnot. A fella saw him. He said, "Man, what do you do?" I used to pride myself in writing small. I could write on a regular a line of, what is not college rule, but regular rule. Why I could write 3 lines. That's how
Oh,
small I
wow.
wrote. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used like a
Okay.
stylus pen. And he was looking, he said, "Man," he said, "let's have that stuff typed up." And to date myself, we typed it up and mimeographed.
Oh, wow.
Okay. The first
Yeah.
100 copies and sold them for $5.
Wow.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And
And
they
that's
were
a prime example. I didn't even know that. And that's a proven method right there.
yeah, that's
So
it.
if y'all listening, it works. It still works to this day. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, man.
Nothing new under the sun. Okay. So it worked back then. And now this
Yeah.
is awesome.
That got me out of the dorms and an apartment.
Yeah.
It probably gave me more money than I needed at that level, because I don't even think I was 18 yet. And so in those days you had to have a draft card, and I remember going into the bar with the one girl on the campus who kind of liked me, and I'd been lying about my age, and when the guy asked for the draft card, I just left.
Yeah, I gotta go step outside real quick. I gotta look and see if it's gonna rain.
That's it. I'm like,
Let me go check and see if I got my umbrella.
Yeah. I think I'd search myself. I said my car, and the thing was, I used my uncle's car on the weekends, so it was like I had, it's my car. I
Right.
left it in the glove compartment, and I never went back.
Did she go back out with you, or she's kept her in the
Oh
place?
no, man! Let me tell you. After that, I was, she went across the street to Barnum.
Okay.
And so in those days, Columbia was all boys. So I didn't. If I saw her first, I ducked her.
Oh, you're like, oh, did she go?
But years later, I ran into her, and she said, "I'm still waiting."
Wow, that's funny. That was cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I had not a clue, about all I wanted to do is get through. But that idea of entrepreneurship, I think, when you're teaching those, I'm going to really delve into your book because that's really going to be the key in the future when we look at this confluence now, AI
Mm-hmm. Yes.
taking away most, and it's amazing when the head of the company that's developing AI comes and tells you that it needs to be regulated. Okay,
Right.
when he comes in, that means that the horse is already out the barn. Okay,
That's right. That's
they
right.
don't.
Yeah, it's gone.
They're coming to you because they finally realize it's beyond their control now. It's
That's right.
gone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's out of
So
control.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so when we have students coming out now competing against the machines, then whatever your entrepreneurship is going to be your really primary way to create financial security.
Absolutely. And then even with the AI, it's those that can so AI is a tool, right? And so for those who can best master the tool are the
Mhm.
ones who are going to be successful.
Everyone,
Because
yeah,
then those who know how to ask the right questions or create the correct prompts are the
yeah,
ones who are going to be more successful
yeah.
because they know how to effectively and efficiently use the tool versus somebody that's just saying, hey, uh, write me a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of letter?
Uh-huh.
How long is a letter?
Mm.
What tone is the letter?
Yeah.
Who is the letter to?
Yeah.
Why are you writing the letter? Right. So when you
Yeah.
put in more of those, those indicators or variables that help it hone in on specifically what you're asking it to do,
Yes.
those are the people that know how to ask the right questions. They're going to be successful.
Wow. Now, give us the name of your book again.
Yeah.
Hold it up so we can see it, man.
Okay. Yeah, sure
Uh,
thing. It's called Financial Literacy 101 for college students. So
okay.
it's how to find the money, budget the money, and grow the money. So it's if you go to finlitbook.com, it'll show you like the table of contents and everything that's in there.
Yeah.
But it just goes over everything. So it navigates and shows parents and students how to graduate college debt free. But that's just the strategy. But it's involved are like all the financial literacy principles or all the national standards on personal finance. So we
Yes.
talk about a bank account, we talk about credit, we talk about, investing a little bit. We even talk about retirement because
Yeah.
if students want to secure a substantial retirement, they need to start young.
Yeah.
Sometimes people aren't thinking about retirement until, okay, I'll get a job in my 30s and I'll
Right.
start building on retirement. But no,
Yeah.
if you were to start it, at 20 years old, then by the time 45, 50 rolls around, now, if you did it even on a moderate scale, you have at least a good $1 million in your retirement account, right?
And
And that's
and
just an example.
and that's key. You see, that's
Mhm.
and I'm going to go back to a minute when you lost your job, you were unemployed for 11 months. How'd you get through that?
So, well, the very first day, I called one of my mentors, and because I've been working for a job so long, he told me because I've never been fired before. I never got let go, fired. I didn't let go. I didn't want to go nowhere. They didn't let me go anywhere. I didn't want to go,
Yeah.
but they had a reduction of force, and it was me. It was 1,200 people that got told they had to pack their bags and go. But he told me about Department of Labor, and then I can get what's the thing that you call unemployment benefits, right?
Uh-huh.
I can get unemployment for, a fraction of what I was getting paid, but it's just something there to help me stay afloat and take care of my basic necessities like my
Right.
lights and basic food
Right.
until I can get another job. And so that ran out quickly. And so I had to create so this is before this became popular. I saw what was the trends that was going on, and there were a lot of people that were starting to take their businesses and starting to market it on social media. So instead of paying somebody a salary, so let's say, $40,000 or $50,000 a year, I could charge a company $1,000 a month as a consultant, and then I'll manage all their social media for them. So I would be a social media manager, right?
Okay.
And so
Okay.
my goal was to build it up to 10 clients, paying me
Uh-huh.
$1,000 a month. They're
Uh-huh.
happy because they're not paying $50,000 a month for a
Right.
salaried employee. They're only paying $12,000 a year. So they're
Mm.
saving money. And then I'm only working 1 or 2 hours, at most a day, but
Yeah.
for all of the clients,
Uh-huh.
because I'm just maybe updating a post or posting something and then just replying to a couple of comments, maybe 2 hours a day. And now I'm scaling up between $5,000 and $10,000 a month. And so, yeah. And then that was a social media management company. And then that's what I would do. But then here's the thing. So I think it's Pareto's principle. But when you have well, it's a combination of Pareto. So you have the 80-20, and then you have another rule where it's just saying, it's just like are you the thermostat or the thermometer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're a thermometer, you're only going to adjust to the temperature that's in your environment, right?
Right.
But if you're the thermostat, you can set the barometer for the temperature that you want to be at. So however you want to slice or dice it, if I was the thermometer, right, I had my temperature set too low. I didn't have it high enough, because then once I got to a certain point where I was comfortable, then it was like I wouldn't work harder because my vision or my dream wasn't big enough. So once I got to the place of comfort, I was like, oh, I can relax now.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy I said where I heard it from him, and he says he makes so when the first time he made $3,000 or had $3,000 in his bank account, he said, that's going to be my zero now for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever number it is, let's say your zero is $20,000. You have $20,000 in a bank account. That's your new zero.
Okay.
So no matter what, you can't go in. So let's say that you have $19,500 in a bank account. Now you have a negative $500 in your bank account in your mind now.
Right.
And no matter what the bank account says, you're new zero. So you're like, if you're getting close and close to zero, you're like, I almost have nothing in my bank account now, mentally, right? Psychologically. So now you're going to do whatever it takes, right? Either put systems, people in place, or think of a vision that can be cast where you can set something up to where now your income is increasing again, right?
Yeah.
Now you're working at it either mentally, right? Mentally first, because everything is mental. Everything is in the 6 inches in your head, right? And that's where it starts. But now you've created a cast of vision to where something can be created to get you back to that place where you're comfortable again. Whatever you said that level of comfort.
Yeah. Yeah, we call it ground zero.
Ground zero. Yes, sir.
Ground zero.
And that's what it really took. But and the reason I say all of that is because then another opportunity for a job came around, right? And then when I said, oh, well, I can do that, and then I have that security, even though I was going to be getting paid less, I found that security. But then when my energy flowed to the security and I wasn't actively working, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're constantly having to be innovative, right?
Right.
And if you find the sweet spot, if you find something that you're good at or knowledgeable at and that you love doing, and it doesn't matter what you get paid, because it doesn't feel like work, even though you're working at it constantly. But then when you find something that you don't necessarily have to work toward, then the things that you're working for in that innovation stage and entrepreneurship, it usually goes to the side, because where energy flows, money grows, right? So that was where my energy went to the job, and then and then the passive income stream, the company I created, it just started dwindling by the wayside. And going back now, if I would have outsourced it and had teams in place to sustain it, because what you'll find a lot of entrepreneurs do is they like to create things, but they don't like to work in it, right?
Yeah.
So you have the self-employed, and then you have business owners, right? And so business owners, they love creating systems and delegating and leveraging people and systems in place and just saying go. And they're like, all right, I don't want to do any of that stuff.
Right.
Let me just create it and let it go. Let me create the machine, hit the switch, and then everything go in place. But the thing is, I wanted to have the business owner mindset, but I was acting like self-employed. But then I wanted to treat it as a business owner to where it could continue by itself, but I didn't have the systems or people in place to continue or sustain it. And then it fell by the wayside naturally.
Yeah. Well, very often many entrepreneurs are faced with that choice. You get a hot one. I've been a network marketer for probably 40 years and made millions over the years. And you get a hot one, and it consumes you, and you get to the top, and then you get to that level of complacency. It's like in the beginning in entrepreneurship, in network marketing, it feels like a sprint.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. Because you're
Yeah,
like, let's go,
yeah,
let's get our
yeah,
meetings, let's get our
yeah,
sessions, let's get our
yeah,
calls in,
yeah. Let
everything.
me,
You
yeah,
got
let
the
me get,
fire. Like, what are we
yeah.
selling? I don't know. But
Don't
we're gonna
matter.
sell it all. It
Yeah,
don't matter. We're just gonna
yeah,
move as a team and we're gonna figure it out together,
yeah,
And
yeah.
then that dwindles.
We say fire on ice is better. No, uh, let's say what do we say? We say something. It's I'd rather be fire on ice. Oh
Then
man.
ice on fire.
I know what it is. Ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice.
Ooh, yeah. Ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
it's those action takers that get it done.
yeah, yeah,
It's the action takers, no matter what, no
yeah.
matter where. It's the people that consistently take action,
Daily,
get it
every
done.
day. But then you get to that point where you go like, okay, man, like I don't want to sprint all my life. Let me slow back and you may be evolving the training, more people and whatnot. And then, systems change, companies change. One of the things I find that when you get something like network marketing, it's like a blend of entrepreneurship and traditional business.
Yes.
you know, and
Yeah.
so you have that entrepreneurial thing, but it's not a free range entrepreneurship because you have a company that may,
Right.
very often network marketing companies and most companies probably don't like them. In traditional business, nobody makes more than the CEO.
Right.
You know?
So what are you doing, right?
Yeah,
And this is
yeah,
like, because most of the time they're just hoping that you get maybe 2 or 3 legs or 2 or 3 distributors under you,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
they fizzle down and they may get some. But
yeah,
then when you start getting all of these individual distributors and
yeah,
they're selling all these products, and then all that's rolled up to you,
yeah,
now you making more than the CEO. They're
yeah,
like, wait a minute, what's going on
yeah,
here?
yeah. So they'll change the game on you, Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. So what you're really saying, when you face that challenge, and I'm glad we got that because many people, like I said, with the AI experience happening, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of folks have just, there's a time for everything. The Bible says there's a season for all things.
That's right. Yeah.
And this pandemic, I think, has thrown a lot of people off of their season.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
innovators are still rolling. You throw us
Mhm.
in the water, we're going to learn how to backstroke, crawl, some kind of,
Do some type of synchronized swimming.
yeah, we're going to do something. But
Yeah.
most people, you throw them in the water, they may, dog paddle a little while, but eventually they probably go down.
They go down. Yeah, because they say,
And
I ain't built for this.
yeah, yeah.
Where's my life raft?
Yeah,
Where's my life
that's
raft?
right.
I
Right,
demand a life raft. You're
that's
like,
right.
wait a minute, ain't no life raft coming.
Ain't nobody coming, man. You
And
there
that's what I
waiting.
say, you gonna sink or swim. What you gonna
Yeah,
do?
that's it. So now you move into this arena, and your book, I think, is really helping a lot of people. Where do you see the next move? What's your next move now?
So that's a great question. So I have the book, and a lot of nonprofits and school districts and individuals are buying it, for themselves or
Uh-huh.
their children. And then the other thing is that I just created a workbook. So I'm getting the final draft of the workbook as we speak, right? So I should get it back today. And there are some school districts, because they have regulations on things they could buy based on grant money. So some people can't buy a book, but they could buy a workbook, right?
Right.
Or they could buy
Uh-huh.
the work. They can buy the book as long as it comes with some type of activity or workbook. So,
Right. Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah.
okay, what do you need? And I'll make sure I have it for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was one of those things. Or they might not be able to pay for the books, but they could pay for a speaker, right?
Right. Right.
But part of the speaker is paying for the books too. So it's just like finding out what people need. And that's the thing when it comes to asking the right questions. I remember we were talking about AI. It's about asking the right questions or giving the right prompts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people will cut off their blessing because they're not patient enough or open-minded enough to ask the right questions. So it's not a matter of yes or no. It's a how can I? It's
Okay.
not a matter of can I, but how can
How
I?
can I? Yeah.
And then they're like, well, I'm glad you asked that question. Let me tell you how. And
Yeah.
most of the people are open to telling you how to get it done. They're like, if
Yeah.
you can deliver, I can. And
Yeah.
sometimes I go back to like the Bill Gates story. And when he promised Microsoft to the investors, he told them, he said, oh yeah, I can get that done for you. Had no clue. But he said, well, I'm gonna figure it out. Right. And then he asked the right questions to make in order to deliver on those promises. So the next phase is getting the workbooks. I have my own coaching program where I coach parents and students, right? And I keep it limited
Mm-hmm.
so I can have that more intimate time in that group session. So at the most, I might have like 10 to 20 students in the group at a time, so I can give them that individualized attention. And then the next phase is going to be software, because I know software is one of the most leveraged things that you can have. It's just,
Okay.
and set it up either like the electric company where you can get paid month after month, and then you have your churn or your attrition rate, so people fall off. But as long as the funnel or the system is bringing in more people who need it, right? So it's not like I'm going to be giving the software to people who don't need it, but I'll be giving it to people, and then and then I'll probably either sell that, grow to a point where I sell it to a big company, but I'll keep the other portion of my company where I'm doing the consulting and the education, because that's what I have a passion for. I love seeing the transformation in the parent and the students and the parents, because it changes their lives. And then the thing is, once they learn these skills, it's not just for college. They can use these skills for life, right?
Yeah. And that's, our company is called the Life Skill Institute. That's
okay.
the whole, the living is a skill.
Yes.
Learn, practice, and master it. Well, that's it. And then I even, as you're talking, very often I see trainings, it's something like S, a Mind Spring, we have these trainings. Sometimes I look at that when you can scale up and take your training, like the joy right now is that personal interaction, but to leverage that now to train the trainers.
That's right.
Then, institutionalize it. That's where I see you going, because
absolutely, and that's the goal. Because I see people like the Robert Kiyosaki and the Cash Flow Rich Dad Institute, and then I see I went to one of Jack Canfield's 2-day seminars, and I see how he set it up, and he has his coaches, and then like Anthony Robbins. I think you acknowledged him in your book. And then so it's the people that are coming through the coaching program. They're the ones that are going to be vested because they're believers, right? They actually went through it and got the success for themselves. So why not have people who are willing to plant their flag and say, I am a testimony, or I am a success story from this very program that I'm coaching you on. So I'm not telling you about something that I heard about. I'm telling you about something that I've experienced and something that I know. And then that's going to be the vision. And so if I am doing something, it'll be very occasional for some type of premium price, to where I'm working one-on-one with somebody, and just pretty much, like you said, train the trainer or cast the vision for my team, and that's the end goal as well.
Wow. So now if you look back, because you look like you're like 22 right now, man. So.
I appreciate it. But you're like, wait a minute, these years, you talking about you 18 years in higher ed and all that. You're like, you must have started when you was 5.
That's it, man. You got into college at 6.
Exactly. I'm in my 40s. So
Well, when you look back on your younger self, like coming out of college, you had a certain mindset. Now, where'd you go to college?
The Savannah State University.
All right. Like
University by the Sea. Yeah, the Savannah State. Yeah, the Tigers, orange and blue. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, if you look back, what advice would you give your younger self coming out of college? Wide-eyed and bushy tail.
Yeah, I would say be consistent. Don't give up. Don't lose the shiny object syndrome. I think that's where I was always trying something new. Now, hindsight is 20/20, so I gained skills from all of those things and experiences, right? I think one of the phrases or thoughts of Google is to fail forward fast, right? And so being able to be consistent, because there's so many ways to be successful, right? If you're trying to measure by finances or relationships or anything, but as long as you stay consistent over a certain period of time, you're growing, right? You're growing. And I say there are no losses, only lessons, right? No losses, only lessons. I heard Brian Tracy said, there's no failure, only feedback, right? And so I like to take a spin on and say, there are no losses, only lessons. And so if I would just say, I would just tell my younger self, it gets better. Hold on and don't give up. And it'll get better, and just believe in yourself. I wouldn't take away any of my experience, even the job loss and all that stuff. Like, all of those experiences made me who I am today. And I think if I was to take any of those rungs out the ladder, then I wouldn't necessarily be who I am today, And sometimes you'll have those experiences where you wish you didn't have,
Uh-huh.
right? And you know, have it some external situation you wish you didn't have to go through that, but it made you who you are. Now there's some mistakes that I've made along the way that I wish I didn't make, you
Mhm.
know, that I could have taken back. And most of that is sometimes either disappointing somebody or disappointing myself, things like
Mhm.
that. I would say, you know, I could have done different there, you know.
Mhm.
But all the other things that happen, I guess, to me based on the environment or external things, no,
Yeah.
I'd keep all of that.
Wow. Well, I think it was Mae West, one of the old showgirls, Broadway, vaudeville ladies. She said when they asked, she was one of those like was still hoofing at 65, and just said, "Would you change anything in your life?" And basically said, "No, I just like to do it earlier." Like all the mistakes.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
nail on the head. That
yeah,
goes back to that fail forward fast, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
times we don't even want to fail, but if we fail, we want to fail slowly,
Uh-huh.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And it's just like, so when they asked Thomas Edison, well, why did you keep going? Why it took over 1,000 tries to get
Uh-huh.
the incandescent light bulb right, you know?
Uh-huh.
And then his answer was he figured out ways it didn't work. He
Uh-huh.
ran out of ways that didn't
Did
work,
not
right?
work. Yeah,
But the
yeah.
thing is, he had to keep at
You
it
had to keep at it.
until
Yeah,
the light switch came on.
came on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, now think down the road because I'm at you see where you're going now. If you can progress down the road about 20, 25 years,
Mhm.
what advice would you give your current self from where you see where you will be in 25 years?
That's a good question. I think more along the same. I would just say, uh, if you what the word say, write the vision, make it plain so they may run, right? And
Yes.
so I would tell myself to write everything down and act on it,
Mm,
because there's so many, like I think everybody experiences at least once in their life a $1 billion game changing idea,
yeah.
but something happens where doubt sits in, right? Sometimes the past, and the allow the past to narrate, you know, their current reality and say, oh no, that you can't do that. Maybe
Mhm.
somebody else. But I
Mm,
would just tell myself, write it down and create a plan and act on that. Okay.
yeah. Yes.
And then every time, you know, there's a movie called Yes Man, or I think Shonda Rhimes Shonda from
Shonda Rhimes.
Rhymes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
From that, you know, with the How to Get Away with Murder and Scandal,
Yeah.
wrote all those
Yeah.
stories, and Grey's Anatomy. So I think she wrote a book called The Year of Yes. And it comes
Mhm.
along with the same concept. But I
Yeah.
think I would tell myself to give my permission to say yes more
Yes.
often.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with putting yourself first. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You
Mhm.
can be humble and love and care for everybody else, but you can put, you know, it's just like you can't take a journey of 1,000 miles in a car and have a whole passenger bus filled with people on an empty tank.
Mhm.
Or, you know, if the plane is going down, what do they say? They say put the mask on yourself first and then
Yeah.
take care of the people next to you. And
Yeah.
then you have to think about it like that. It's just like, okay, you can only help yourself when you're full, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
fill yourself with everything that is good so you'll
Yeah.
have enough to give to everyone else.
Woo, yes. You can't
And
share from an empty cup.
can't share from an empty cup. You can pour as much as you want out, but if you have nothing in there, there's nothing
Yeah.
else to pour into anybody else.
Wow.
So
Wow.
fill yourself. Ask God to fill your cup, right?
Yeah.
And then as your cup is filled, then you'll be able to bless others in so many
Yeah.
powerful and transformative ways that you can never even imagine. And so that's what I would tell myself 25
Wow.
years down the line
Wow.
from
Yeah.
here, that yeah, just and believe. Just
Yeah.
believe.
Yes.
Just believe, have the
Yeah.
faith, right?
Yes.
We
Yes.
have faith, choice, and desire or
Yes.
dreams. And it's just with
Yes.
those three combined,
Yeah.
you can move mountains.
Wow.
And you just have to have what to say, faith the size of a mustard seed.
Yes,
And if you
it.
put a mustard seed next to a mountain, you tell me this little mustard seed faith can move mountains.
Yeah.
Those thoughts can become things. And the more you tell yourself that and believe it, it'll
Yeah.
happen.
Well, I tell you, man, when I listened to our conversation, when we wrote the book, we wanted people to get it, and as I hear you, you got it on such a level that I'm like, yes, 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 yes,
That's
yeah,
it. That's
yeah,
exactly it.
yeah, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
Now, is there any particular section of the book that really jumped out at you?
I think the universal law of thought, just that self-image and how you see yourself, right? Like you can create whatever type of story. So my minor is theater, right? Well, my minor was theater 20 years, some years ago, right?
Right.
Like my minor is, you ain't in college no more, boy. So anyway, my minor was theater. And
Uh,
so we would be able to play these different roles and we'd have to study the character and I would visualize what this character would say and how they would move and what they would do. So, just like see yourself as successful, right? See yourself as successful, like paint the image. What thoughts do you have about who you want to be? Like dream, like cast the vision of who you see yourself in the future. And it's a blank canvas. So just write it out and then just
yeah.
become that person. And once you see that person, don't see yourself as one day becoming that person. See yourself as that person now.
Yes.
Once you believe that person now, what do you walk like? Okay, your posture's a little better.
Yeah.
What words do you use? What thoughts do you do? What do you spend your time doing?
Yes.
What people do you associate with?
Yes.
How do you spend your time? Everybody has the same 24 hours. So what do you do in that 24-hour period every day? What do you read? What do
Yes.
you study? How do you sharpen the saw? How do you move now that you're successful? Like
Yeah.
some people say, okay, I heard Marshall Silver, he said he had these affirmations and one of them says, I'm a millionaire, but the money just isn't in my bank account yet. So if you're a millionaire already and you're moving with your finances, if you have $10, how would a millionaire see that $10 and what would he or she do?
Yes. Yes.
If they had $100, because it's like, okay, we got $1,000. What's the quickest and most leveraged way that I could turn this $1,000 into $1 million? Henry Ford said it best. He said, you could take away all my money, all my business, everything. Just give me my same team back and we'll build it up that much faster.
That's it. That's it. Wow.
So yeah, that section.
Yeah.
Self-image. That's where it starts. Be, do, have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Got to be before you could do and do before you can have.
That's it. And you intermingle it so nicely with vision. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because you got to see that canvas, see the picture. Michelangelo said when he was carving, what is it, David? Yeah, he said, I had a piece of stone and it had a picture in it, and I just carved it to set it free.
Yes, sir. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
It was already there.
Yeah.
It was already there.
Wow. Chris, I tell you, we're gonna do some stuff together, man. I think
I'd love that. I would love you're already my adopted mentor. I don't know if you know it or not, but you already I done claimed you. You're my mentor.
well, I accept, man, because
yes,
I see the work you've done and I see the results you're getting.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
When you look down the line and you see some of the people, you see that, like you say, that seed. Sometimes the seed is, needs a lot of polishing and fertilizing. When you can have a seed, though, it's like when you go to buy a plant, a tree, you buy it where it's a small tree. You don't buy the seed. The seed may not make it. But when you buy the small tree, you gotta, like you said, every mustard seed doesn't grow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, you get a tree that's grown a bit, it's a certain height, and it's gotten past all the things the odds that hold you back. And so when I look at what you've done, man, you've grown you beyond that mustard seed, you're a tree.
I appreciate it.
And now that tree is expanding and duplicating, and you're going to institutionalize this thing, man. I
appreciate it. I see it, and that's confirmation. And then when you're talking about the tree, like I just left a restaurant for lunch today, and then in the pond there were these Spanish koi, right? These not Spanish, but the Japanese koi, the fish that grow really big. And with fish, and then one of my associates was talking to me, and she was saying, yeah, my brother or my uncle, he has these fish, and then the bigger the tank that the fish is in, the bigger the fish will grow. And even just like the tree, sometimes you have to put that tree will only grow as big as its environment. So if you want it to grow bigger, it has to spread its roots much farther out. And once the roots are able to spread, then the trunk or the base of the tree can grow bigger. And so sometimes people, if you don't get anything else, you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in that environment to where you can continue to grow. And then once you can expand your environment with your words that you're using, with the knowledge that you're putting in your head, with the experiences that you're gaining. Now that tree is going to be able to grow like the cypress or the oak. And then you'll be able to cast a shadow over things that were getting burned before. And you all started as a seed. So yeah. And then a lot of times people, they're planted as a seed, but they're just like, it's so hard to break through the soil to get into the out the earth, right? But it's purpose, because if you didn't go through that those obstacles or the challenges to get through the dirt, you would never become that tree. You would never be able to, just like a rocket. Sometimes people say, man, I wish I could just be like that billionaire or multimillionaire, and they're just coasting or whatever. Yeah, they're coasting because they broke through the Earth's atmosphere. But the hardest time of working is in that countdown, when all of the fuel and all of the energy is being used up. But then they need that energy to break through the atmosphere. And they're doing all their hardest work. But then over time, now they can pick up systems and people and leverage all these things to where they get to the point where they're in zero gravity orbit around the earth. And now they're coasting because they were able to withstand and push through all of that hard work to break through the Earth's atmosphere. So look at the challenges, look at the obstacles as a blessing to let you know you're on the right part to get outer space. Woo!
Woo! I tell you, man, we keep on. We're going to have to take up a
I know. Okay.
Well, Chris, man, give us your website again and any
absolutely.
final thoughts. What's your website again?
So the easiest way to follow me, if you have Instagram, go on Instagram, because I filter everything through there. Just go to the Fin Lit Guy. It's THE, Fin, FIN, Lit Guy. The Fin Lit, LIT Guy. It's short for the financial literacy guy, but it's the Fin Lit Guy. And then if you want to go to I'm getting ready to change my website, so if you go to it right now, it's kind of like but it's finlituniversity.net is my website. Or if you want to get a copy of the book, you go to finlitbook.com and that'll take you to the and then that has information about how to reach me. Or if you want to email me, just email me at info@finlituniversity.net. I always respond to my emails. Sometimes I get a lot, but I still make time to respond individually to them right now. So depending on when you're listening to this, I'm still responding to my emails. I haven't outsourced that part yet, so you're going to be reaching me. But yeah, I would love to hear from you. And just I'd love to hear from you. That's all.
Thank you. Wow, folks. I tell you, this is an interview. We could probably go on for another hour.
I'm telling you. Once you connect with somebody and the energy's in sync, you can just go. You're like, oh, what about this? Or have you thought about this? So I love it.
Well, we're going to do a follow-up interview. I promise you that.
Yes, sir.
And to our listeners, you're going to get a lot out of this. And this is an interview. You want to bring a piece of paper. And I guarantee you, many of you who are either have kids in college, going through that, know people with kids in college, this book, this approach is really, it's essential. It's necessary because that's an area that, man, I tell you, there's so much misinformation that you can find yourself in a whole lot of financial quicksand.
That's right.
You don't know what you're doing. So be sure to get Chris's book and go to his website. And whatever you do, remember this, that you have the capacity to be anything you want to be, to do anything you want to do, and to have anything you desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.